Vroom, 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 vroom. Honk, honk. Get in, losers. We're going struggling. Vroom, 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 vroom. Hey guys, welcome to another ride in the struggle bus, where every wheel is an empty triangle. Today we have an apology to make. Well, not we, mostly me. I have an apology to make. Recently, somebody played a game and they had a question with one of the moves that came up in the game, and so they went online to ask, the community, hey, what's going on here? What can I learn from this? And that player got some answers, and then kind of questioned those answers, maybe challenged them a little bit. And I think because of the limitation of how we communicate online, I think that got a little misunderstood, and people saw him as being a little combative and or questioning the people who were trying to help him. And a lot of us did not really respond kindly to him. And I know one person in particular, me, answered a little sarcastically more than I probably should. And that's really not what we want the community to be. It's certainly not what I want the community to be. And I can't control everybody, but I can certainly control myself. And I think I probably should have done a better job in handling that situation. So what are we going to do to fix it? We're going to go and take a look at the example that they had a question on, because I'm not even sure that they really got a good answer. And they probably left the whole situation frustrated at the whole thing. So let's try to make amends with that and go over the board position, because it is an interesting one. And I looked into this a little bit. I talked to some stronger players because the move in question, my intuitive move, lined up with what AI said should be played, but I couldn't really articulate exactly all the reasons why. And so I wanted to make sure that I had a better understanding of the situation, and some of it lined up with what I was considering, but there were some other nuances that I hadn't considered. So again, reached out to some stronger players and teachers of mine to make sure I had a good understanding of this situation. So I'm going to explain it as best as a 2K player can. Certainly stronger players are going to have more to say about it. So let's take a look at the board state in question and go over some of the options. Okay, so here is the example that we have. This is the board state that was presented online. And I didn't have the game file, so I don't know how, in what order the moves were actually played. So I'm not sure if this was Black's most recent move, but that's kind of moot to the board state. We have the board state in front of us. And it's White's turn. I have a few moves labeled here, and the question that got posed was, why is B so bad? The player played B in their game. AI dinged this pretty hard and said that A should be played. And so they asked, why is this the case? And a lot of the answers pointed to the fact that this group could be attacked now that this stone is here. They also pointed out that Black's area really isn't that big, and so we really don't need to be invading right now. But there were follow-up questions, and it's clear that this player was looking for a little more understanding, and they were asking pretty valid questions. Mainly, hey, this group actually looks pretty strong. Why are we talking about attacking this group when it looks like it's fairly strong? And also, this area looks pretty large. Can I really just ignore that and let Black get all these points? And so that's kind of the question at hand. Why is AI saying A is the move to play here? And why is AI dinging B so hard? You're going to notice I also have C labeled. There were two other moves that AI said were acceptable on this board. Well, I'm sure there are plenty that are acceptable, but there were two more that were highlighted as green. F18 was one of them, and C10 was another. I'm not going to discuss C10. It's just a big move. I think we can understand why this is a big move. I mainly want to talk about, the semi-local / global area of right here. What's going on with the power balance between these groups, because that's really what most of this comes down to. So let's start with why the invasion isn't that great. So in this case, Black already has a fair amount of points secured, and has a good amount of strength in this area. Black's shape isn't the greatest, but Black does have a good amount of strength. Playing this, it's just too early, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, when we play here, one thing we're doing is we're making another weak group. And I say another because white does have to be concerned with this group down here. This group isn't terribly weak, but it's also not terribly strong. Similar to the group up here, and I'll get into why that is. And so when white plays here, we really need to be careful because now this is creating a weak group on the board that is near another weak group. So as this stone gets bullied, it's possible that black could choose to play in a way like this, looking to surround, potentially even killing the stone because this is actually going to be difficult to escape from. But while this happens, black's now going to be gaining strength here closer to this weak group. And so this group will be even further punished if black gets more strength here. So white truly does have to be careful with this stone. Even a move like this, it could be difficult for this stone to live. So it's already a little too deep. It's already behind enemy lines, right? If we draw a line from this stone to this stone, we're already behind it. So it's possible that the stone doesn't live. And if it does, white's going to have a big price to pay for it. So I think it should be pretty clear as to why we don't like B as a move. I think it's in this position, it's easier to explain and understand why this move isn't that great. The real question comes in with, why is this the move? What is this move really looking to do? Why is this one that's so good? And more importantly, why are we saying that this group is now potentially weak when it has access to the center, it has a base, and it has eye space, right? Which are really the three things that we look at when we discuss strength. I'm going to have another video linked in the description here that goes over how we figure out if groups are strong or weak, and those are the three basically data points that we look at. Is does it have access? Does it have unimpeded access to the center? Does it have a base? Can it make a base? And does it have eye space? But the caveat here with all those is this assumes if your opponent gets the first move here, do we have unimpeded access to the center? Do we have eye space? Do we have a base? And I think that's the part that's missing here in the understanding is after this stone is here, this group no longer has line of sight to its nearest ally. And if white gets another stone, let's say black just plays here. If white gets another stone potentially here, now black really doesn't have unimpeded access to the center. If white plays something like h16, black really doesn't have any eyes anymore. And then more importantly, if white gets a move like f18, this is an exchange that threatens to take out the base of this group. This, now really threatens something like h16 or j13. And it's important to note what this exchange really does. This pretty much all but solidifies a very large corner for white. Before this exchange gets made, this move is very much still playable for black. This is a difficult move to deal with, especially if the outside group is strong, which it isn't quite yet, but it could get stronger later in the game. And if this group becomes completely alive, then this becomes a very strong and very difficult move to deal with. When we make this Hane exchange and connect, this Aji isn't there anymore. This stone simply can't live, and there's really nothing that this stone can do. So white makes a large exchange here, gets actual points out of it, and black's group, you can see, is really starting to get weak here. And you're probably thinking, well, black can still run out, and that's true, but we can continue to bully this group. We're not going to kill this group. If anybody who's watched enough of my videos will know that when we talk about attacking groups, we aren't talking about trying to kill the group. We're not saying, oh, this group's weak, so it's going to die. We're saying this group is weak, and so it has a debt to pay, and when we attack it, we're going to be collecting on that. So in this situation, again, we have to assume that black is allowing us to get another move here. Now, if we get a move like this, black really has to run quickly and run for their lives. And even if we just do a very simple exchange like this probably isn't how the game would go. But black, now really needs to run. And as black is running, look at what's happening on this left side here. White is getting very real profit from this attack. So that's really why black needs to be worried about this move in terms of this group. This group isn't going to die, but there are pretty severe attacks that can be placed on this group, and white's going to get very real profit out of this. Also, we have to note that when white plays this move, white is now threatening to Hane at the head of 3. So if black sees this and goes, well, you guys are saying this group's weak, but let me show you, this group isn't weak at all. Look at how strong it is. That's true, but now black has to deal with this. And, we went into this saying, this is just so big for black. What are we really going to do about it? Well, let's go over how it's really not that big. So black plays something like this. And let's say, now white decides to play here, right, to threaten this, and black blocks. And this is going to be an end game move, but I'm just going to show it, right? And then black has to respond to this. And then, okay. And, truly this Hane exchange would be made first. I just wanted to show the reductions that could happen later. But now, white gets to play this double Hane. And that's the real strength of playing at the Hane at head of 2 or Hane at the head of 3. And in this case, that's especially true when we have this cut right here. Black really needs to be careful. Even right here, black needs to be careful. Because a move like this threatens to kill either of these stones, right? So this cut doesn't work yet, but the stronger white gets on the outside, the fewer liberties black has, the more that's going to be, the more dangerous that's going to be. Black can't get away with this right now, because as white extends, now this stone's going to die, or if black tries to save this stone, now something like this happens, and this is obviously completely disastrous for black. So this doesn't work, right? So that's what makes this double Hane so strong. So really all black can do about this is play here, and then white's probably going to connect to fix their cut. And so now we look at this, and so now the question I pose to you is, does this area actually look that big? Does this actually look that scary? And the answer is no. This really doesn't look that scary. And for stronger players, this is what they're going to look at when they see this on the board. They're going to look at this and go, yeah, this looks big, maybe. Backing up a little bit, it's like, this looks big, maybe. But really the only way that this gets big is if white ignores it and lets black get the turn. If black gets this turn, then it's pretty big, right? Now we can see that this is potentially dangerous, because if we just go play something like this and now black gets a move like here, black's building a pretty serious moyo that could potentially get a lot of points. I can understand the concern there, but that really isn't turned on until black gets this turn, which is another reason why playing here and stopping that turn is so large. The final reason as to why this is important is talking to how big this turn is. Right now, when white plays here, white has some pretty good access to the center of the board. And we know that the center is the least important part of the board, right? We want to be going for the corners, then the sides, then finally the center. But eventually you get to a point in the game, like what we have looking at here, where all the corners and sides are spoken for. Yes, this side is still open, so we do have one more side here. But once that's spoken for, that's pretty much it. The corners and sides are taken, and now we're going to go after the center of the board, because that's how you control all the fights for the rest of the game, right? That's how you're gonna surround groups and be able to jockey for position to actually turn your potential into points, because that's really truly what the game's all about. Is at the beginning we are building potential for points. Okay, looking at this board, white has potential for points here, but they're not points yet. We know that these two stones don't secure this corner, and white has potential here. But it's not points yet, because we know that the 3/3 stone works. And black has potential here, but we just demonstrated how that can be reduced, right? So we're building up all of this potential. And the way that the potential gets actualized into points is when we have these power struggles in the mid-game and late mid-game. And you're going to lose out on those struggles if you don't have access to the center and if you don't have strength in the center. And so that's why influence is important, and that's why controlling the center is pretty important. And so we are getting to the point in the game where that's really going to start mattering. And so this is a great way for white to break into the center off of a very strong group, right? White is already alive here, so this group can never be attacked. And so being able to break into the center is just large and important. So all of those factors go into why this is just a big move. And again, I wasn't able to articulate that well enough to explain it, to be able to teach it until I talked to some stronger players. But it is worth pointing out that this was my intuitive move. This is absolutely where I would have played on this board. If for no other reason than to isolate this group from these stones and to threaten the Hane at the head of 3, right? I also didn't necessarily see a fantastic attack on these stones, but I do know that this weakens the group. Often, the way I play is if I think there's an attack on a group, if I think there's something there, but I just don't quite see it yet, I let the game develop. Because often what will happen in this situation is let's say that black does go and take this big side, right? And then we do get this situation, and black plays here, and we extend. Now we can really start seeing just how behind enemy lines this group is. And so now maybe I could be like, oh, now maybe a move like H16 is really, really scary. I bet if I surround that group, right, if black continues to ignore, I bet if I surround this group and play something like this really could be in trouble. And then all of a sudden, if black wants to play here, I get to close this corner for free, right? Because again, we have to keep in mind that this is very real Ajin. This is a very annoying move. If this is not one you know or understand, I'd suggest studying it. I'm not going to go over it in this video, but it's an annoying move to deal with. So if we're able to fix this for free, right, and if black plays here, it's like we still have this as a really scary move, or we still have something like this, which gets us real points. And now we can kind of start seeing that maybe this shape isn't as alive as black wants it to be. So we can see that this starts getting in trouble if we give white more free moves here. And I know the counterpoint is, well, we would never give white these free moves. But again, if black is having to spend moves just to get this group stronger while white is getting real points, white is making out in that exchange. So I hope this helped better explain this board position for the player who had the questions. I hope this was interesting for anybody else who was new to this. And so, yeah, so it's something I felt like I needed to do because we need to be better. We need to be better as a community, and we need to understand that when people are asking questions that, they're genuinely looking for help, and, consider that before we jump down their throats by potentially misunderstanding what they have typed onto their computer screen. So anyway, that's where we're going to leave this one today. Thank you guys for coming out for another ride in the Strugglebus, where every wheel is an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.